Have you guys ever wondered, like, who I'm beholden to? Is it the viewers or is it the vendors? This review is gonna show you that it's you. People are always asking me, should I buy Fatshark goggles right now? And what they mean by that is, I'm going to buy Fatshark goggles, and if I buy them right now, will Fatshark release new, better goggles a month from now that will make me wish I'd waited? And if you asked me that question in the last couple months, you might have noticed that my answer was a little bit oblique, a little bit like, because I've known for the last couple months that Fatshark has been working on this, the Fatshark HDO. Yep, this is Fatshark's new goggle, and I really wanted to tell you, you should wait, but I didn't want to break my NDA. So the first thing we got to say about the goggles is the screen. It's a 960 by 720 resolution OLED screen. And the quality of the screen, I mean, OLED is higher quality than LED, right? That's just a fact, right? So it's a high quality screen with a good resolution. The interpupillary distance, the IPD, that's these little sliders down here. It's 59 to 69 millimeters, the same as basically all the other Fatshark goggles that are out there today. Nothing has changed there. So if in the past you have rejected Fatsharks because they couldn't get narrower or they couldn't get wide enough for your eyes, that's not going to change here. However, I will say the field of view is a little bit smaller, and this is going to be a controversial decision. The field of view on these goggles is listed as 37 degrees, and that means the screen that you're going to see is a lot smaller than if it was a wider field of view. Now we're going to look in the goggle. I've actually got a little mechanism set up, and we're going to actually look inside these goggles. You'll see. And you'll compare the screen size of the HDO to something like the HD3, which has, I think it's a 42 degree field of view. And then there's the HD2, which is like a 50 degree field of view. And it's very interesting to see where people fall on their opinion of these three goggles, because the HD2 had a really big field of view. It just fills your vision. In fact, some people felt it's a little too big because they don't like having to look left, right in order to like look down to see the OSD or to see the edge of the screen. And many people, myself included, have blurry edges on the Fatshark HD2 because the field of view is so big that it actually gets outside the sort of sweet spot of the lens. The HD3 has a smaller field of view, which I think was designed in large part to combat the blurry edges problem that so many people had with the HD2. And then the HDO has a 37 degree and even smaller field of view. I bring that up because if you're on the edge of the IPD, if your eyes are just barely too wide or too narrow, that smaller field of view is going to make a larger sweet spot for where your eye can be relative to the screen before you start seeing distortion. So you may be able to use the HDO where you couldn't use the HD3 or especially the HD2 without blurry edges. But a 37 degree field of view is not going to knock many people's socks off. But I really prefer the larger field of view of the HD3 at 42 degrees. I feel like that is a real sweet spot where you get great immersion, but not so big that you are having to look, practically turn your head to see your OSD. And frankly, I really dig the 50 degree field of view of the HD2s, even though I have blurry edges, because it's so big and immersive. So 37 degrees, I wish it were bigger, but it's got to be the case that because of Fatshark's, the new OLED, the optical module, it's got to be either a design necessity or a decision to try to make it a little more accessible and have better edge-to-edge optical quality by putting more of the screen in the sweet spot of the goggles. Now let's take a look inside the goggles, and in order to do that, here's what I've got for you. What I've got here is I've got a Foxeer Predator, and I've got it wired up to the screen. Hello! And I'm going to just stick this in the goggles, and you can get it close enough into the goggles that you can actually, it's almost like having the human eye there, so you can actually see and get a sense of what the screen looks like. Now here's the screen of the HDO. As shown by the Foxeer Predator, and obviously you can't really get a sense of the optical quality because this is not a very high quality camera, but you certainly can see the size of the screen. And what I want to show you now is how that compares to the HD3 and the HD2. Now here's the screen on the HD3, and we're getting some little flashing distortion here. Also, we're seeing some light bouncing around inside the module. That is not something you see when you put your eye up to the screen. That's only because there's a camera in front of the eyepiece and not an actual face. So just take a look there at the size of the screen though. So I can get that squared up. Good and squared up. That's pretty good. And here's the HD2. And again, these are definitely directly comparable because in all the cases the camera it's basically touching the front lens element, so the distance, the eye distance is the same for all of them, and the sizes should be pretty comparable. There's one more little enhancement that I'll show you as long as we're here in the goggles, and that is that if I turn the DVR on, you may have missed it, but what I didn't have to do is I didn't have to turn the module off using that little switch on the bottom of the goggle. So Fatshark has made it so the module is automatically switched on and off. It also works that way when you plug in HDMI. It automatically turns the module off and switches to the HDMI input when you plug in HDMI. So that's kind of cool. Now, as long as we're looking at the screen on these goggles, you would think the next thing I would do is show you the image quality so you could compare. But you really can't do that without putting your face into the goggles. I'm not going to take a Foxeer Predator and try and use it to show you how much better the OLED screen on the HDO looks compared to the regular LED screen on the HD3. That's just not a comparison. So you're gonna have to take my word for it. No. Because here's the thing, I feel like that the image quality enhancement is really gonna be a subjective thing. Some of the people, I've done some research talking to other people who've held these goggles, and some of the people say they put their face into them and they were blown away by the improvement in the image quality. The image does, I think, look a little bit more contrasty and a little bit more saturated and colorful than the LED image, which is just a little bit more washed out. On the other hand, it's not like we're looking at a Blu-ray here, right? So I feel like the additional image quality of the OLED screen may be lost a little bit on the source image, and I feel like some people are going to want the larger screen of the HD3 compared to the sort of higher quality but smaller screen, higher resolution screen of the HDO. That's kind of subjective. I mean, I already told you I still prefer the HD2, which has a great big screen, and that's already 2 generations behind, so I might not be the right guy to ask about that exact issue. A minute ago we saw the DVR menu, and you may have noticed that it looked pretty much the same as every DVR in every Fatshark that you've ever owned. It's the same DVR that's in the HM DVR standalone unit. It's the same DVR that's in the FlySight Falcon goggles I reviewed recently. I assume it's some Chinese chip that you buy by the 10,000s for pennies a piece. And for those of you who are hoping for like a upgraded DVR, H264 encoding with a decent bit-rate that didn't go to garbage, for you who are hoping for a DVR that didn't drop frames when the RF got warped, yeah, Fatshark doesn't seem to have changed the DVR at all. And that falls in that category of frustrating things that you wish they would do and you kind of wonder why they don't, and you wonder if there's a good reason, but in the meantime you kind of like just mad about it. So what else have they done that's another thing they've done that's different is they've improved the power supply. So for example, if you know how Clearview has to run an extra wire over to the head tracker bay just to get an extra 5-volt power source because they would draw too much current from the main bay. And I think that's true for the new rapid fire module from Immersion RC, although I'm not 100% sure about that. So that shouldn't need to be done anymore. You should be able to run those modules just plain off of 5-volt power, no problem. That doesn't help modules that are available today, but for future modules, you should be able to get more power off of these guys. I would hope that that would also solve, you know, sometimes there's an issue where if you run like a True D, like is in these goggles now, and it draws too much power, occasionally you'll like burn out a ribbon cable or something. I would hope it would also solve that issue. We wouldn't have to worry about that anymore. So there's an upgraded power supply. Lastly, we'll talk about price. And this goggle comes in at $499, which is pretty expensive. No doubt. $500 is about where the top tier Fatshark goggle typically comes in. That's how much the HD3s were when they first came out. And over time, the HD3s have kind of crept down, and now you can get an HD3 Core for $399. It's not brand new. Fatshark has found ways to save money on production and just brought the price down because it's not the newest and the best. So I think the real question that you got to ask is, how do these stack up to like the HD3? And what do you get with these versus the HD3 for $100 more? The first thing you get, of course, is the OLED screen with the higher resolution. And I think that's going to be a really subjective thing as to whether that's worth $100 extra, the difference between $400 and $500. For a lot of people, the field of view on the HD3s is going to make them more compelling, even though the image is a little bit more washed out compared to the OLED screen. The difference between 37 degrees and 42 degrees is pretty substantial. With these goggles, you get the other sort of usability enhancements, which are nice, but again, are they worth an extra $100? You get the battery pack. So it's the battery pack, and this is the newest battery pack with the USB charger built in. So that's something, right? That's something, and I'll be honest with you. I already told you I like the HD2s. I like the HD2s the best. The 50-degree field of view, even I know so many of you hated the blurry edges of the screens on the HD2s because they were too big, and I see the blurry edges too, and my interpupillary distance is 1 millimeter too narrow, but still, they're the goggles I use every day. When I put the HD3s on my face, I ain't mad about it, and you can't buy the HD2s anymore. If you find a used HD2, man, tell me about it, because I'll buy them. The HD3s, I think, between the HDO and the HD3s, I really think I would take the HD3s for $399 today. I don't feel like the improved image quality of the HDO is worth an extra $100 to me, especially when we're feeding it this crappy standard definition feed from our analog signal that's always breaking up and it's terrible. You know, half the time it's black and white. I'm not sure I really see the difference. And for me, the smaller screen especially would turn me off. Fatshark has done some really nice things, like the automatically turning off the module when you plug in HDMI or when you go to the DVR. But on some level, you're like, well, why do you have to get kudos for that? That's like, I have to turn off the module before I go to the DVR? You couldn't have done that? And no, apparently not. And that's one of those frustrating things that you're like, why? And then you don't know why. And maybe someday we'll find out. But there you go. That's the HDO. It's the new goggle from Fatshark, and it's $100 more than the HD3 Core. And if you want the latest and greatest for $500, then this is it. It's got, yeah. It's killing me. This review is killing me. It's killing me. The screens really do look nice. But why couldn't I have had a nice screen that was 42 degrees? Fatshark, you drive me crazy, Fatshark. You do such good things. They're good goggles. They're such good goggles. Why? There's a reason all the pros fly Fatshark. Mostly. They're such good goggles. But they're so frustrating. You give me an OLED screen. Oh, but it's 37 degrees field of view. Why? You make it so hard for me to review your goggles, Fatshark. You really do. You can't just make it better. And then just, awesome! Yes, it's better! It's always like, well, it's better, but it's kind of worse. And it's more expensive. HD goggle from Fat Shark. If you want to buy the latest, coolest, look, 37 degrees is not that bad. It's not bad. It's not bad. It's a really nice looking image. It's the newest one. Oh, everybody, it's black. Everybody will be like, ooh, that's new.